All right, guys, welcome back to another video. It's your man Jay. So here's what we do. I'm going to answer this question that a lot of people have asked me. Jay, which one of these devices do you like best? Should I upgrade? Should I keep mine? I'm definitely keeping my 9 Pro. I moved to the 10 Pro. I'm disappointed, blah, blah, blah. Personally, the 9 Pro was my favorite of the two from the previous year, the 9 and 9 Pro. And I like the 9 Pro because it was really narrow and thin and it curved display. I really liked it. And then I really like the 10 Pro because it's the same body ultimately. You get better cameras and things like that. So we're going to jump into this here. Try not to be too long on this because ultimately, folks, you're looking at the same phones, just different camera modules and then better cameras as well. So here we go. On the front here, you see the same 6.7-inch display, Quad HD, 525 pixels per inch. That's identical. But you then have this LPTO2 Fluid AMOLED display. And the typical brightness on here, it says it's about 500 and then 800 and then 1300 peak on both of these. So ultimately, folks, you have the same display. This one just gets a little bit brighter more often or regularly. That's it. This is the easiest way to explain it to you. They're both 20:9, but somehow the 10 Pro feels a little bit more narrow for some reason. I don't know why that is. Placebo effect, I don't know, but it just feels narrower. I don't know why. Now, when you get into the type of materials used here on the front, you've got Victus over here and 5 over here, and that's Corning Gorilla Glass. So supposed to be a little bit stronger and better or whatever, but who knows? Glass is glass and it's going to break. So you do have a 4nm chip over here and a 5nm chip over here. Folks, you won't be able to tell the difference. Basically, Snapdragon 888, Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. That's it. So you're going to have in my personal opinions, after using these, I don't see much difference. Trying to like open apps and things like that to prove that one is better than the other, I don't think that really does much at all. I'm not on the internet on this one because this one got so many notifications coming in. But I don't think you're going to see in daily performance any difference really at all between these two, because this has 8 gigs of RAM and then RAM Plus. Basically, you know, you take some of your storage and convert it to RAM, and the same thing over here, but this one also has 12 gigs of RAM. So it's a huge bonus to be able to use RAM Plus, or you know, get the extra bump of RAM from using a piece of your storage. That's fantastic, and I think that's a good way to go about using your phone. So having 8 gigs of RAM over here doesn't bother me at all, because OnePlus devices they've always been the fastest. I mean, nothing's changed here. OnePlus is still giving you everything under the sun. They just changed the price, and they came up in price to match other OEMs and make money, I guess. So while this has 8 gigs of RAM and this has 12, I don't see a difference in performance. I think everything just flows along pretty smooth on both. No problems whatsoever. There's nothing going on with this device or the 9 Pro. They're both speedy and fast. So when it comes to operating systems, this is running Android 12 with Oxygen OS 12, and this is running Android 12 Oxygen OS. So let me go into here. Color OS is on the versions that are in other countries like China when they release it. So it's got like it looks like that over here too, if I'm being honest. But you know, you can't tell the difference when performance with these right here, from Color OS to Oxygen OS or stock Android or whatever. Let me see here. I'm gonna find the let me see here.
I want to get this without exposing too much information here. I'm gonna show you the build on here, but it just displays so much information. Nonetheless,
you get the gist of it. They're both fast in software, no problems whatsoever with performance. RAM doesn't play a part at all. Now, where this one does get a head nod though is because it has 256 gigs of RAM, or 256 gigs of storage, and this has 128 for the US. But the offset of that is when this launched, it launched at $1,070. This launches at $899. So, you know, there's a trade-off. There's always some kind of trade-off. So on the back here, you've got a 48 megapixel main shooter for a wide lens. on both, and you have an 8 megapixel 77 millimeter telephoto lens on both, and then you have a 50 megapixel ultra wide lens on both. So, you know, same. But some people have pointed out, oh Jay, you know, the ultra wide lens on the 9 Pro is better. It's not that it's better, it's just considered on paper to be better. Using them, folks, I don't see any better over here. So, and then you have this 2 megapixel monochrome camera, which is, you know, whatever. You have the Hasselblad, you have 8K recording on both, but the head nod again goes to the 9 Pro because it does 30 frames per second in 8K. This does 24 frames per second. Go figure. So, when you come around to the front here, you've got a 32 megapixel camera on the front of the OnePlus 10 Pro. And sadly, it doesn't do 4K 60. It doesn't do 4K at all. These are both capped at 4K 30 with EIS, a gyro EIS at that. So while you're getting some, you know, and they both have auto HDR, this has a 16 on the front and this has a 32 on the front. But it's no better. It's not too much better from what I can tell. You know, it's okay. It's good to go. You know, nothing spectacular or anything like that. So now these both have blazing fast charging. However, the 80-watt charger isn't available in the US. You only get the 65-watt charger, which is 1 to 58% in 15 minutes. And this one goes 65 watts, 1 to 100 in 29 minutes. So basically, both of these phones charge to 100 in 30 minutes. And I can confirm this is really, really fast. They both offer fast wireless charging. This offers reverse wireless charging though, which is something I rarely use, but I would use it with my OnePlus Buds or whatever, I don't know where they're at, or just any kind of OnePlus device that can go on the back of watch or headphones or anything like that. But, you know, nonetheless, that's all that techie stuff out of the way, folks. I'm just going to tell you that if in fact you were curious about whether or not you should upgrade, one of the main selling points to upgrade on this device is the cameras and then the software. So you'll probably get more software support now, you know, versus this one. I'm not saying that for sure, but I'm going to just jump out there and tell you, this is still a fantastic purchase. You can get it as low as brand new $650 for this device. That's incredible. But you know, this one is $899, and then they released an ultra version of this, which I really wanted, but it just didn't come to the US, and that's unfortunate because somehow these companies feel like the US market is just not going to be supportive. I don't know, but. And to be honest, the U.S. market does complain about pricing all the time. People are complaining about this $899 price, when in reality, you should be getting onto this device about as much as you got onto the Pixel for their price. Now, I know the Pixel offers a $999 version for 256 gig, but I just think even that is not that good of a look. You should have this at 256 gig for $899. That is one of the biggest downsides, I think, of owning the current version, is that, you know, you have to rely on 128 gigs of storage on board, and then you have to rely on your cloud storage or external Type-C memory options, which I do have. So let's get into what you want to see is the cameras, and we'll be right back. here's the front camera on the OnePlus 10 Pro. Here's the OnePlus 9, but the OnePlus 10 Pro produces the colors. I think they produce them a little bit more realistic and true to life on the front camera. Rear cameras, it's questionable whether or not it's a big difference, but on the front camera for sure, the colors are more accurate, a little bit more deep. The video looks a little bit more sharp on the 10 Pro. Now I'm going to show you what I mean. I'm going to switch to the 9 Pro and see if you can tell any difference. Now here's the OnePlus 9 Pro up on the tripod, and here's the 10 Pro. Now with the OnePlus 9 Pro, it looks like the colors are a little bit more flat and a little bit more washed out in comparison to the 10 Pro. Also, there's a little bit less in view with the 9 Pro than there is with the 10 Pro when I'm looking at it through the viewfinder. All right, guys, so there it is, a tech spec comparison at the beginning, ending with some camera talk and video. Now, there is a disadvantage to the 10 Pro where you can't shoot in wide angle, you can't shoot wide angle for 4K 60, and it just goes away. But with the 9 Pro, you can shoot 4K 60 in wide angle, and I think that's an advantage because I like shooting 4K 60 or just 60 frames per second in general, and that's something that I saw here that I wasn't a fan of. I have to switch to 30 frames per second in order to get the wide angle for 4K 60. So other than that, I think the cameras are much improved, way better on the 10 Pro. At least they got that right, because that was kind of the downfall for me of owning a OnePlus 9 Pro. I love the device so much. I just couldn't get around these cameras. They just weren't up to snuff. So there's some things that I think are important to people and some things that are not important to people. But if you go into the settings here, just want to show you the more here. You can look here. You have things that some people might use. You can see the difference here. There are way more options here on the 9 Pro. You have a movie mode, which is really nice. And obviously you have the X-Pan, which is great. But you have a Pro mode for photos, and that's your Hasselblad. But over here it's called Expert. So long exposure. There's just several more options. 150 degree. That's the fisheye. But it's just really nice to be able to have more options with the OnePlus 9, with the OnePlus 10 Pro, knowing that they've made some improvements with the cameras. I even like that dual video view. It's just certain things. I feel like this device is totally worth switching if you are a camera person, because battery life and things like that, I didn't discuss any of that because it's totally subjective. You're going to use your device how you're going to use your device. And you're not going to be able to tell a person you're getting poor battery because the device as a whole gets poor battery, because I think we all debunked that with the Z Flip 3. Everybody said that several people said the Z Flip 3 had poor battery. And I know several people, including myself, had great battery. But the response is always, oh, you don't use your devices. Well, of course I do. Of course I do. Just because I carry more than one device, which is typically about 2, that doesn't mean that I'm not using both of them the same. So, and I get what you're saying by saying, oh, it's not getting all the attention. Well, for the most part, though, I'm predominantly using 2 devices when I'm at home. Very seldom when I go out the house with 2 devices do I talk on both. You know what I mean? Like, so it's more of a take 2 devices with me. One is a device for one thing and the other one is predominant. You see what I mean? So they're getting the use. So that's why I didn't discuss like battery life or anything like that, because it really doesn't mean much. So having all the extra functionality of the camera, getting the same performance, the same battery for me, that is, and just having a much nicer looking device, and it just seems more polished, I think they did a great job. So would I recommend you get the 10 Pro? At first I said probably not, but I'm a man of my word. Now that I have them both in hand, I don't think the cons outweigh the pros for switching. Because if you just have to have all this storage on your device, then obviously you want to shoot for the OnePlus 9 Pro or one of the previous generations that offer 256. But hey, I think the 10 Pro is a legitimate upgrade for me because of how I use my device. I use it for content creation and things like that. So I'm always focusing on video cameras. And so that is where they have finally impressed me after all these generations of devices by getting it right. It's your man Jay. Hope you guys enjoyed discussion about the 9 Pro and the 10 Pro. I personally would tell a person, if you're into cameras, definitely move over to the 10 Pro. If that's not your main, and I say that because we're in a social media age, folks. That's all people talk about is cameras. Now all you see is camera comparisons. Nobody really talks about the device as a whole, and I think that's more important than just talking about the cameras. But if you are a camera person, and that is your sole thing, and you just have to have a OnePlus device, go ahead and move up to the 10 Pro. You will not be disappointed. It's your man Jay. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.